think I froze my. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Reverend Tammy Patzer, and we are live on the air. And today I'm interviewing LaWanna Bradford. She's the COO of the Bradford Group, which is a commercial and investment mortgage brokerage. And she's also the principal of the Bradford Group Consulting, a business management consulting firm. But in today's capacity, I really want to drill down with her big passion, which is how she's shifting the paradigms that allow women to elevate to their highest and best selves through Celebrate You, Women Embracing Wellness and Life, a movement that she co-founded. And we're going to be talking about an event that's coming up in November. So we have plenty of time for you to prepare for this, because you definitely want to mark your calendar, November 6th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And it is the third annual Women's Financial Wellness Boot Camp. So that's really exciting. Whenever you can say that you've done something more than once, it means that you're on to something. So LaWanna, tell me more about the boot camp, and then we'll dig into some of the issues about why this financial boot camp for women is so important.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tammy. And with the boot camp, I love that we created it as a boot camp, because it's not just where you're sitting there getting information, but the women will be actively engaged in understanding what's going on in today's environment financially. Because as we know, every industry has been impacted by the pandemic, and the financial industry is no different. So we, as individuals, particularly women, need to start having those conversations, understanding what shifts are happening, how may our current mortgage environment be impacted, our future as far as our retirement, are we on track, what's changing with insurance? We know that's a huge discussion right now with life insurance, and what changes are being considered in light of, the pandemic. So we are going to have conversations around, first, your mindset. We know that once you shift that money story, then life can start to change for you. We're going to talk about credit. What does it mean with your credit? How do you drive your credit, to be a favorable credit score? And again, understanding it's more than just a score, but it's the story behind the score. We're going to talk about insurance, mortgages, retirement planning, investment strategies, and then we're going to just open it up for Q&A, and just to really help women feel comfortable in the conversation around money. Because Tammy, I was surprised to see that most women, they don't like talking about money. They'd rather talk about death, believe it or not, than to have a financial conversation.
Why is that? Why are women so hesitant to talk about money?
I think when you think back generationally, who has been the one that has managed money in households? It was typically, the men, as far as determined, they were the ones bringing in the money, and then they ultimately had the final decision as to where the money was going. Well, now that more and more women are in the workplace, and we forget that, this whole revolution really started in the 60s and 70s. We're not that far removed, but women just haven't been comfortable just having a dialogue. And maybe it's because of fear of not really knowing what to ask, not having enough experience, because the industry in and of itself is still male dominated. And so I think also in the fear of being judged. If I tell someone, or if I ask a question, right?
I think that's a big part of it, because of the, well, let's just face it, the gossip of, if you tell somebody something, and then if they gossip or tell it to somebody else, pretty soon your business is out. And I imagine I was taught you don't air your dirty laundry in public. And so money, especially money problems, or not understanding how money really works, would be something that you probably wouldn't talk about. But it's funny that you said that. When you talk about the 60s and the 70s, and here we are, this is 2021, and we've come so far, but yet we still are like clawing and scratching, trying to just elevate our status, because it just seems like it's so much harder for women to earn enough money, to save enough money, to think even about retirement. Because I know for me, I've been a single parent for most of my adult life, literally from the time I was 21 years old. So I don't have a lot of experience with, like, for example, the part about the man being the breadwinner and controlling it. However, I was controlled because when I got a divorce, they didn't pay child support. So that was, again, a way of controlling me, even though they weren't even in the picture anymore, because I had to work harder to, have multiple jobs. So I had to, be more of a survivor. And I can understand exactly what you're saying, why women don't talk about it. So you've been helping women with money because of the business you're in, mortgages and investments and strategic planning. You've been helping women for more than 30 years. So what has made you so passionate about this issue? Because, full disclaimer, I know Lawana personally, and I know that her heart and soul is behind everything that she's doing here. So what happened that made you so passionate?
I think when the financial, we call it hiccup crises, hit me, because there is a financial crisis facing women. This isn't something new. It's been going on for decades, centuries. And things like the pandemic has exacerbated it. Well, for me, where I was, hit in the face with this, just, oh my gosh, what am I going to do financially, was during 2007, 2008, being in the mortgage industry. And what happens, the mortgage industry is hit because of what was going on. I lost almost everything. My plan was tracking until the rug was pulled from under me. I had and I'm not saying this to be boastful, but I need to really paint this picture. I had already had a little over $1 million in my retirement fund. Life was good. Because of what was happening, and I had a staff of 18, I started doing what I tell people never to do: pull from my retirement to survive, pull from my retirement to keep my business afloat, pull from my retirement to keep people employed as long as I possibly could. Because the last thing I wanted to do was tell another person, I'm going to have to let you go. Long story short, I did have to let everyone go. We were able to keep our doors closed, but now that $1 million retirement, went down to $7,800, 7,800. So I realized that if I, who understood finances, doing everything the right way, could spiral out of control, how much greater angst and anxiety must other people feel who don't have the knowledge or the skills or the abilities or the experts around them to help build back up? Because I knew that I could make it again. That wasn't my concern, but I knew now my strategy had to be much more focused. I had to really evaluate my risk, because now, look, I'm so much more closer to retirement today than I was then. So that, I think, really fueled my passion, where I started thinking outside myself. Coming from a background that was, if you want to call it privileged, it was, to where I literally was wondering, Tammy, how am I going to keep this roof over my head? How am I going to keep my lights on? I had to let let life insurance go, let my health insurance go, because I thought I can't afford it. Understanding what it's like to go to clinics for healthcare. I'm like, who does this? But at that point, it was swallowing pride, and it was about surviving. So going through that, surviving that, rebuilding, I thought, this is for something greater than me. I can't just keep how I did it inside. I now have to partner with experts like myself so we can share the knowledge to tell women it's okay. Life is going to happen. And hopefully not like what happened to me, but if it does, you can rebuild, and you don't have to be alone in the rebuilding process. So that's the impetus behind the passion, the rallying cry, if you will. I'm banging the drum.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I understand it, because I lost nearly everything, and it took me 5 years of fighting with the bank to save my home. I just kept going to court, and I kept saying to the judge, I think I've got a fraudulent loan. Judge, I think this, and it just kept going on and on and on. And finally, I got a phone call in 2012, and started in 2007. Oh, we're going to help you restructure your loan. And that is one of the things that in this situation, 2021, at least this time, the banks did reach out to people and say, we're going to help you before you get into trouble. And we're, whatever the things they did. But I know that a lot of banks reached out proactively this time to help people. But I look at it now, because this is a year and a half in this pandemic, and all of our safety nets that they had in place, the unemployment that they had in place, the mortgage moratoriums, the forbearances, the rent, the eviction moratoriums, those are pretty much over. And there's a lot of people that if they didn't shift gears in some way and try to figure it out, they're going to really need to understand, well, how do you rebuild? Because I think that's important. And it does go back to our history. And I'm a child of the 70s, but then I think about my daughter. She grew up in the 90s. My sons grew up in the 2000s. And I'm thinking each one of those decades had something that wasn't quite right. It was either high interest rates or, just different things happening. So now that we know that everyone's been affected, but do women seem to get the biggest brunt of the being pushed into lower economic status during these downturns? It seems like it to me, or is that my imagination?
No, that's the unfortunate reality. And it's because we're starting off in a deficit. When you're thinking about the wage gap between white men and just women overall, putting all women in a bucket, we hear women earn 82 cents on the dollar. But when now you start to dissect the segments of women, white women earn 80 to 82 cents on a dollar. African-American women, 64 cents on a dollar, which means, so we hear about April being the pay equity day. That's when women are earning what a white man has earned during the previous calendar year. So a white woman has to work an extra 4 months. An African-American woman has to work an extra 8 months to make what the white man earned. Hispanic women, it's tragic. 55 cents on a dollar. They have to work in an extra 11 months. So when we're thinking about if everything continues as is and nothing changes, white women will see parity in about 34, 35 years. African American women, 120 years. Hispanic women, 200 plus years. I don't know about you, Tammy, but I don't have another century to try to catch up. That's why we have to have these conversations and strategies and get at the table so we can have decisions on how things are regulated, to really mandate. And I'll look at the federal government, for example. Federal government pay is so far behind corporate. And so now you're looking at a widening of that gap. What can we do to kind of force the hand, if you will, to start reassessing for equal, there should be equal pay for equal service, no matter who's in that position.
Right.
But that's not what we're dealing with. And then when you go beyond the US borders and look at emerging nations, it's pathetic.
It really is. And it's interesting because when I was in high school, so go back in time to 1975, I was in the Model United Nations. And we were studying American history and things that were going on during that time. And these issues of pay equality, the equal rights, women around the world, suffering and being held down. We were talking about all of this stuff back then, and here we are. I don't even know how many years ago that was now, 40 some years ago. We're still talking about it, and it's like, and every time we turn around, they're trying to push us back into.
And think about this, Tammy, that when we think about the suffrage movement, one of the catalysts behind that was pay equity. 100 years ago, that was what women were fighting for.
I know. I sometimes I can't wrap my brain around. I mean, some of the things people actually say, it's like, okay, what Kool-Aid are you drinking? Because it doesn't make sense to me, the things that people believe. And especially when you get to this money issue and everything that your boot camp is covering, the more I think about it, it's like, oh my goodness, this should be like mandatory training. Maybe we need to start talking about this as soon as kids start preschool, about money and how to make it and how to keep it, and how, all of these issues, and that it's okay to be abundant. There's so many people that think they have to work so hard to do things, and just like the thing about how much it costs to live, like in Florida, it's like $24 to afford the rent. I can guarantee you that you have to work at least 3 jobs in Florida if you were trying to pay the rent yourself, to get that $24. And it's not something that's new. That was the way it was as long as I can remember. I always was working extra jobs, even though technically I was in a good paying middle management job. I still had to go get extra work just to, what I call, make ends meet and keep food on the table. And, and believe me, we weren't living the lap of luxury. And of course, luckily we had the medical through work and things like that. But now more and more people don't even have that option because it got so expensive. That's why the Affordable Care Act was so important. So
right. And what you're saying when you're thinking about the pay isn't keeping up with the cost of living. Cost of living is rising, cost of healthcare is rising, and we're earning less. And with the pandemic, who was the hardest hit when you're looking at the industries where most women are working? So or now the schools are closed, daycares are closed.
Women have to stay home, figure out how to make money from home. They have to figure out how to take care of the kids. They have to, if a child is sick, they have to figure out, well, how am I going to either, stay home and take care of that? Some employers will fire you if you try to take care of your family, and, because you can't, call in. I mean, it's a cycle. So November 6th, the boot camp, you're going to have 7 different financial experts come in and help people. I think you mentioned it when we were first talking about it, but you were saying how the participants will be doing some interactive things.
Yeah, so they'll be going through exercises, because the thing is, I can sit and hear information all day long, and then after 4 hours, it's like, wow, that was great, and I leave and I don't apply it. But we want to take them through some real world exercises and asking questions. And I'll use like mortgages, for example. Most people, men and women, if I said, what type of mortgage do you have? Well, I don't know. I think it's fixed. It's like, you think either it is or it isn't. If I ask, well, what's your mortgage payment, excluding your taxes and insurance? Most people don't know that.
Right.
So, and that's real important, because, and let's say you, for simple math, $100,000 loan, you have a 30-year mortgage. Well, when you think about the etymology of the word mortgage, it means to die, right? It's so you're wedded to this obligation for 30 years, and you're like, oh, I only took $100,000 loan. No, let's look at our mortgage documentation and look at that amortization table and see that $100,000 loan may have actually cost you $300,000. And so it's about having the conversation to say, well, maybe I could afford to put a little extra a month and pay it off in 20 years or pay it off in 15 years. And again, looking at it from a different angle, how much money would I have avoided paying out that could be used for something else?
You're right. I know for a fact that people don't think about that. If you don't pay that mortgage, like for the full 30 years, that was money you could have used for something else. I know people don't think like that, but I was actually doing some more mortgage research or home loan research, and I've seen that they're actually making some loans like 37 years.
There's 40-year mortgages out there. I have a friend that just got a 40-year mortgage.
And that was a little bit shocking to me. But then when you look at how much a car is, I mean, I had my very first house that I bought myself was $45,000, and my monthly payment, including taxes and insurance, was like $450. And I think about that, and people have car payments that are more than that now. And my insurance is what blows me away, is how expensive just my car insurance is, and how, back in the day, I could hardly afford that. And now I'm just like, you have to make so much more money just to have a telephone. I mean, it's crazy how expensive everything is, and how our money, we need more money, but yet minimum wage hasn't changed for what? I don't even know now, 20 years or something. Because I remember.
And you're right, things haven't changed, but if you have the knowledge, then you can navigate a little bit better. I'll give an example with me. So I was in a car accident in October 2019, totaled my car, bought a new car in November, pandemic hits. I've had the car going on almost 2 years. I have less than 5,000 miles on the car. Why? Because I don't drive it. So I was talking to and this is why it's so important to have your circle of trust, your circle of experts around you. I was talking to my insurance, car insurance provider, and I said, this is what's going on. And she said, well, Luana, you do know that you can change your coverage. And I said, well, no, I don't want to change it. I want what I have. She said, no, change the type of driving that you're doing and make it a recreational vehicle for now. until things totally open up and you know you're going to be putting the amount of mileage on it. And I was amazed at how much that saved me. But again, I didn't know that you could even do that. You know, I thought, okay, if I said this is how I'm using it, then I'm sort of fixed there. But that's about having conversations. And then those that understand the industry will start giving you solutions that you didn't even know to ask about.
Yeah, and I think we don't have enough conversations with the people who provide these services to us. For example, our car insurance or health insurance or whatever it is. So the boot camp is coming up. It's the 3rd annual Women's Financial Wellness Boot Camp, November 6th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Is that Eastern?
Eastern.
Eastern time. I think it's always important because
and it's virtual. It's virtual.
You have to calculate if you're, that means that if you're in California, you might have to get up a little early, but it's worth it. And again, the things covered: money mindset, financial crisis in women. That's really important. We need to understand where we're at.
Yes.
Insurance, you mentioned that, and I started to think, oh my goodness, I need to find out about that because I need some life insurance. Investments, retirement, mortgages, credit, and of course there's more, and it's interactive and it is virtual, so it means that you can show up and be there. Is there a cost involved for this boot camp, and are there any, where do we go to sign up?
Sure. They can go to Eventbrite and search by the name, or you can type in bit.ly, bit.ly/money and women, and enter the code celebrate, all caps celebrate, and it knocks the price down to $20. And I always tell people $20 as the sponsor of this event isn't going to make a difference to me, but it will make a difference to you, because I guarantee anyone who attends, no matter where you are in your financial journey, are going to walk away with a golden nugget that's going to be far more valuable than the $20 that you invested to attend this boot camp.
So go to Eventbrite and look up the name, how would they look that up? The Women's Embracing Financial Wellness Boot
Camp, or just go to bit.ly, money and women.
Okay, bit.ly, money and women, and I'll put the hot link into the show notes so they can just click on it. And celebrate,
yes,
savings, and that knocks off quite a bit, down to $20. And again, when you think about it, I loved it when you said your trusted circle. You have your 7 trusted financial experts that LaWanna Bradford has already made sure that they are the experts about these different topics. And even in just our conversation today, you've really opened my eyes to things that I need to be aware of, that like I wasn't aware that anything was really happening with insurance. And so now that I heard that, I can be more like on the lookout for what is going on with insurance. And even how you said to look at your mortgage, what is your mortgage without the taxes and insurance? How much is that? Because you could literally pay a little bit extra and make that amount come down pretty rapidly. And then of course, credit and all these things, and the mindset, I think, is really important too, because some of us, we grew up with, like, I still can hear my dad, money doesn't grow on trees, and things that, like, for example, I wanted to play a musical instrument. And of course, what did my mom say? We can't afford it. So I never played a musical instrument, but I still would love to. But it's funny because when my daughter grew up and she came home and said, Mom, I want to be in the band. I figured out how to get her. I had to rent the equipment, but I did it because I knew that that would be valuable. And she ended up playing, I don't know, 4 different instruments, and she's written songs, and she can read music, and so I thought that was just a value, that my parents didn't think was important, but it was something that I wanted, so I made sure my daughter got it. So, but
yeah, and what you're saying, we have to be really careful to ask ourselves, what is, number one, our relationship with money? What is our money story? Because our money story will either attract money to you or repel, one or the other. But the one thing is money, we hear it's currency, right? So we want it to flow. We want money to energetically flow. And if you're hoarding it, the little that you have, it's not going to grow. So, again, how do I take the small pieces that I am able to have and create savings, or create ways that it works for itself, or maybe create other revenue streams for myself? And can I share this funny story with you real quick? I know we're almost out of time. My business partner, who Barbara Beckley, this goes about with insurance, and she's a financial expert in the insurance industry. She got in her car wouldn't start. She's wondering what's wrong with it. I was just in it the other day. She has it towed. They open up the hood, and she has what she calls a condo under her hood. A little critter built a nest. And in building the nest, they chewed through some key wires in her vehicle. This was over $4,000 worth of damage to her car. But because she had the not only collision, but comprehensive coverage, who knew they cover animal damage to your car? I had never heard of that. But again, because she had knowledge of, to make sure she had certain things and to understand the clauses, that over $4,000 of damage only cost her deductible. So imagine if someone didn't have the right coverage. So again, it's about understanding what people are trying to sell you, make sure you understand how you're covered, and have the conversations every single year. I was even guilty a few years ago. You get your annual insurance statement. How many people actually read it? Or do you say, okay, got it, and you put it in your file cabinet? So I now, every year, I make it a habit. And actually during tax time, I read everything, all my financial documents. And that's when I decide what changes do I need to make.
See, that right there is a golden nugget. Make sure you read what you're signing, and that you actually understand what you're buying, and that savings of $1 on your insurance premium could mean the difference between being covered or not being covered too. I mean, there's so much to learn. So everybody, make sure November 6th, 9 to 1 p.m. Eastern time, go to bit.ly /money and women and sign up. Use the keyword celebrate, and you'll save money, and it'll only be $20, but definitely take advantage of this. And while I have it, where can people go to sign up to become a member of your Celebrate You Women Wellness on Facebook, your group?
All they have to do, it's a public group, so they can just go to Facebook under Celebrate You Women Embracing Wellness and click join, and you'll become a member. And it's an awesome community, lots of positive, uplifting posts that are there, but then there's a lot of education that we share. We showcase our experts out there. So it's all about networking and collaborating with each other to help everyone collectively raise up in their life and in their business.
Well, I'm a member, so everybody join. And again, thank you so much, Luana. I always love talking to you. You always share so much information.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, this is Dr. Reverend Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.